If light were dark, and dark were light, the moon a black hole in the blaze of night, a raven's wing as bright as tin, then you, my love, would be darker than sin, than sin, than sin.
I remember everything. I remember everything! I remember every little thing as if it happened only yesterday. I was barely 17. I was barely 17, and I once killed a boy with a Fender guitar. I don't remember if it was a Telecaster or a Stratocaster, but I do remember that it had a heart of chrome and a voice like a horny angel. I don't remember if it was a Telecaster or a Stratocaster, but I do remember that it wasn't at all easy. It required the perfect angle and the precise power chords. The guitar bled for about a week afterward, and the blood was dark and rich like wild berries. The blood of the guitar was chuckberry red. The guitar bled for about a week afterward, but it wrung out beautifully, and I was able to play notes that I had never even heard before. So I took my guitar and I smashed it against the wall. I smashed it against the floor. I smashed it against the hood of a car. I smashed it against the body of a varsity cheerleader. Smashed it against the 1989 Harley Davidson. The Harley howled in pain. The guitar howled in heat. And I ran up the stairs to my parents' bedroom. Mommy and Daddy were sleeping in the moonlight. Slowly I turned, step by step. I opened the door, creeping in the shadows right up to the foot of the bed. I raised the guitar high above my head, and just as I was about to bring the guitar crashing down upon the center of the bed, my father woke up screaming, "Stop! Wait a minute! Stop it, boy! What do you think you're doing? That's the way to treat an expensive musical instrument!" And I said, "God damn it, Daddy! You know I love you. But you've got a hell of a lot to learn about rock and roll!" Hello, I'm Jim Steinman, and I'm actually here to talk to you about an album that I've just completed. And I'm not sure how many of you know who I am. Jim Steinman is, he's pretty cool. He's a pretty cool guy, but he still owes me money. I've done a lot of production and writing, which you may or may not be aware of. Meatloaf, Bonnie Tyler, Sisters of Mercy, and that's not important. What's important is the record I have to talk about is a record I've just completed called Original Sin with a group that I put together called Pandora's Box. Pandora's Box is always one of my favorite myths, and that's why I thought this would be a great name for this group. I really wanted to do a girls group very badly. Either that or I just really wanted girls. I'm not sure which it was, but I was trying to combine professional and personal concerns. And I really wanted to do a group like when I was growing up, one of the biggest groups to me was the Shangri-Las. Shangri-Las was the favorite group I ever grew up with. Just when I was reaching puberty, they wore black leather, they had long blonde hair, they were really filthy. They came from Queens, New York. Everyone in Queens, New York is really filthy, but not everyone in Queens, New York wears leather. That's the reason they were stars, and the other people in Queens are real schmucks. The Shangri-Las were definitely bad girls. They had spoken words. That was the record where people said, how did he look? And she said, he looked real good. And then she said, how does he dance? And she said, close, real close. And I thought that was the sexiest words I ever heard in my life. It was the first record I ever heard that was like a little mini drama, like a mini opera. Opera. Oh, I grew up listening to opera and rock and roll at the same time. I listened to Richard Wagner, I listened to Little Richard, so it came out as Little Richard Wagner, and it was great. I couldn't tell the difference. I thought all rock and roll was really operatic. I thought all opera was really rock and roll. They were both really physical. They're both excessive. I love things that are excessive. I sort of started that point and worked my way up from there. To me, it's like a teenage prayer. It ain't right, it ain't fair, castles fall in the sand and we fade in the air, and the good girls go to heaven, but the bad girls go everywhere. I really like the balance of light and dark when you get a sense of both things, the tension between the things. A lot of times it's been written that my music's violent, and even though it's not nearly as violent as a lot of other music, I think it's emotionally violent. I just always thought that treating love and sex and songs was pretty appropriate to treat them fairly darkly because they're pretty dangerous things. Sex and love are dangerous and good, and it's a pretty basic fact that in the last few years everyone's aware, especially that love has potential to kill, or sex does. But I think there's a pretty cool aspect of that too, simply in that it makes people aware how it always was dangerous emotionally, if nothing else. It was never safe emotionally. It was never safe because you surrender yourself, you reveal yourself, and that is fucking dangerous. 20th Century Fox is the Doors. The Doors were my favorite male group, even though they were right on the borderline. But they were my favorite male group. Jim Morrison was my idol when I was growing up. I spent a lot of time trying to look like Jim Morrison. I really failed miserably, obviously. But I used to sit around and brood in front of a mirror and practice at it. 20th Century Fox was on their very first album. It was a really cool song, I thought. I thought it was the image of what like every studly person should be like, 20th Century Fox. It has one great phrase in it, no tears, no fears, no ruined years, no clocks. I don't know if Tears for Fears got their name from that, but they don't deserve it if they did. Part of the desire to do something dark and erotic as opposed to light and frilly is that is a reaction to all the records that are out there, all these tinny sounding little records with all these kittenish little girl singers that ever since Madonna just seems to be everywhere. The most terrifying thing about the record industry really isn't their fault. It's the whole nature of this beast, the way that this industry can absorb things so quickly and devour it. The amazing consumption that takes place is really scary. I've been producing now for 12 years, and David Foster, the producer, once said if you can last for 5 years, it's amazing. It's just so much veracity to grab things and this huge appetite, like a giant maw of a mouth out there that devours stuff. That's the thing that's scary. There's a joke that relates to that. Relates to how we devour things. There's a guy walking along the street and he sees this guy coming toward him, his best friend, and he's got this pig by his side. And the guy says, "Oh, Bill, I haven't seen you in so long. It's so good to see you." And he says, "Oh, it's really good to see you too. I've been fine. How have you been?" He says, "I've been wonderful. I've been wonderful." He says, "You know, that's an incredible looking pig. That's a beautiful pig." He said, "This pig? This pig is more than beautiful. This is the most amazing pig. This is the most fanatical, magnificent, brilliantly loyal pig. This is the greatest pig that ever lived." The greatest. He says, "Well, it certainly looks like an extraordinary pig to me." He says, "Well, it is. It's absolutely exceptional." He says, "I just do have one question about the pig, though. How did the pig get one wooden leg? How did that happen?" He says, "Well, you know, let me tell you about this pig. I have to really explain to you how great this pig is. 3 weeks ago, when I first got this pig, I was out driving on Mulholland Drive in Los Angeles, very windy roads, and I had been drinking. I shouldn't have been drinking, I suppose, and I wasn't driving too well. And, well, I took one of those real fast turns around a real steep cliff, and I just did it really badly, and I started to go over the cliff, and I would have died in a horrible fiery crash, I'm sure of it. Just as we're going over the edge, the pig, this great pig, lunges over with his big snout, grabs the wheel, lunges to the right, and with his big hooves, he pushes down on the brake. Just as we were toppling over, it stops with a screech. Saved my life. This beautiful pig just saved my life like that. I mean, I can't believe it. It's a wonderful pig." He says, "Well, it's certainly a great pig. Boy, what a story." You know, when you don't have those little kittenish rock and roll singers, the Madonna clones, you get all these groups, especially in America, though I suspect there's some here, the sort of heavy metal posers, but the women's heavy metal posers, which is so bizarre because what you have is all these girls in groups trying to look like the guys in the groups who are trying to look like girls acting like guys. So you have these girls dressing up and making up like John Bon Jovi, who of course looks like a guy dressing like a girl, but you have the girls dressing like the guys who are looking like the girls but acting like the guys. So it becomes such a terrifying gender confusion. You just don't know who to fuck, and I think it's really embarrassing. And I think it should be stopped, and I think they should all be arrested. You know, it's just one question. How did the pig get that one wooden leg? He says, "Well, you know," the other thing, just last night, my wife and I were having a barbecue outside, and we were grilling meats on the barbecue grill, and all of a sudden I hear the screaming from inside the kitchen when my wife went in to wash some dishes, and it turns out she had put her hand down in the trash compactor and gotten it caught with the sleeve, and, well, her hand was just about to be totally shredded and mutilated, and all of a sudden the pig runs inside from outside with its big snout and pushes her hand right outside of the trash compactor. With its hooves, it pushes her down on the ground and made sure that it turned off the trash compactor, and she was totally safe. I mean, she would have lost her arm, no doubt about it. The pig saved her life, just like that. He said, That's amazing. What a pig." He said, "Oh, you're telling me, what a pig. It's the greatest pig. It's unbelievable. This pig is magnificent." He says, that one question, how did the pig get one wooden leg?" He said, "Well, a pig like that, you don't eat it all at once." And it seemed to me that what this business does is it eats even the most beautiful pigs, usually all at once. Sometimes one leg at a time, but the hardest thing may be to survive that big banquet. And I thought it'd be nice to have something with a little dark depth and power to it, something with some sock, that weren't just little girls, but had some element of being women and being tough. It's All Coming Back to Me Now is my attempt to write the most passionate romantic song I could ever write. I was writing it while under the influence of Wuthering Heights, which is one of my favorite books, and it's always made much too polite. It always has been in the movies, and this is in the Wuthering Heights of Kate Bush, that little fanciful Wuthering Heights. This is like the scene they always cut out of Wuthering Heights is the scene where Heathcliff digs up Catherine's body and actually dances in the moonlight on the beach with it. And I just think you can't get more extreme, more operatic or passionate than that. And I was trying to write a song about dead things coming to life. I was trying to write a song about being enslaved and obsessed by love, not just enchanted and happy with it. It was about the dark side of love, but about the extraordinary ability to be resurrected by it once dead. And I just tried to put everything I could into it, and I'm real proud of it. I did all these projects over the years and kept looking out for girls to work with. And finally, in the past year and a half, found 4 girls who I thought were extraordinary. Lynne Caswell deserves some sort of Purple Heart because she sang It's All Coming Back to Me Now and collapsed about 5 times while singing it. It's amazingly hard to sing. She's a great singer, someone totally new who nobody knows, and she looks like an avenging angel, and I think she's great. I didn't want to have the Supremes. I didn't want to have 3 background singers and 1 lead singer. There are 4 lead singers. And they do sing in the background, but everyone sings leads on the album. It's split up about 2 apiece. Ellen Foley, I met when I did Meatloaf and Bat Out of Hell and Paradise by the Dashboard Light, and she's about as powerful a performer. I remember everyone knows that there are things called stand-up comics, and when I first saw Ellen Foley perform, I thought she was a stand-up tragedian. She's just, if she stands there, she's immediately something tragic about her, but she's so funny and so tough. She's the toughest girl I had ever met, and she should have been in the Shangri-Las, but she was much too young. These girls, 4 of them, are the centerpiece of this group, and I do the keyboards and arrange, write and produce, wash the clothes, do the underwear. And there's a band too, 6 guys backing them up, but the key to it is really the girls. Gina Taylor, an amazing, amazing singer. Saw her first doing Tina Turner in a sleazy club. She did Tina Turner as well as Tina ever did, I think. Brilliant, brilliant, powerful, fiery singer, just amazing. The band is a great band. The band is all pretty much teenage boys because the girls demanded it, and that was part of their contract. Deliria Wilde was in a nunnery 5 years ago, studying to be a nun, was kicked out for something I could not possibly even mention. It was so shocking even to myself. She's one of the coolest singers I've ever known, of Cuban, French, Italian, German descent, in that order, and she sings on the album, and she's the most amazing dancer I've ever seen, and I think that a gynecologist should really examine how she can do those things. But the point being, what is the point? The point is that in the album I was trying to get some real dark, erotic music and lyrics that was about how dangerous in a really seductive and important way, the best kind of unsafe, necessarily unsafe way that love can work. And I really thought you needed girls to do that. It Just Won't Quit is about the fact that there are some things you never shake off, and well, it's like the song, Addicted to Love is what it's about. And it's about, there's a key line in there, is this a blessing or is it a curse? Can it get any better? Can it get any worse? And my favorite line, is it richer than diamonds or just a little bit cheaper than spit? I don't know what it is, but it just won't quit. And that's love, I guess. Pandora's Box seemed like a good title because it seemed like a good modern image of, you know, going back to opening the box and all the sins of the world pouring out. I love the idea of a box that opens up and all the sins of the world come out of it, because it seems to me, as well as being a terrifying box, that's also a treasure chest, because the one place, if you were really honest, that you'd keep all the sins of the world would be in a treasure chest, because it's something you absolutely would have to be, you'd want to hand down from generation to generation, because without all the sins of the world, there wouldn't be all the blessings of the world. They're part of the same thing. I guess it gets back to the fact that I suspect it's not always easy to recognize what a sin is, in the same sense that a beautiful new car can kill someone on a highway, but it's still a beautiful car. I think Pandora's Box is a beautiful, terrifying, dark, and incredibly beautifully illuminated place. And that's really where it all started, trying to do an album like that, plus include the sound of motorcycles. Motorbikes, I love motorbikes. I think they're great. I used to dream about motorcycles reproducing in the alleys in the night and wondering what it would sound like and whether they would come up with little small bikes in the morning and how they'd look if they were pregnant. I used, on Original Sin, I used 35 motorcycles, recorded them, and made a chord out of them. And it was one of the greatest sounds I've ever heard, but no one's going to hear it because the console blew up and I couldn't use it. But the whole record seems to me to be in a little way like a motorcycle, an erotic motorcycle. It's a machine out of control, which is sort of what the human heart is. And the entire album uses spoken word a lot, too, which I've always loved since The Doors. The Want Ad is a spoken piece that Ellen Foley does that's probably going to bother a lot of people, but I think it's pretty neat. You really have to envision a teenage girl I'll do it. Sort of incantation-like, spoken word, chant-like, ritualistic, being kind of a frustrated druid. This is the one ad. Imagine that teenage girl. This is addressed to all the people who answered, or may be thinking of answering, the personal ad I placed in Volume 2, Number 15 of this newspaper 2 weeks ago Friday. First, my apologies to the huge bartender with the voice and the light-hearted, dark-skinned advertising man. If either of you had called me back, I might not be writing this retraction of my ad, even though I will soon be too busy to date much. But why didn't you call back? But to the others, which include the 2 terrifying sisters, the under 18s and over 60s, the numerous ones who dialed my number and hung up as soon as I said hello, the 35 or 40 of you who made dates with me and never showed up, including the one who complained his body was so powerful he couldn't control it anymore, the desperate wife-seekers, the already married, that one who was so one-sided that he could think of nothing but sex, and then had the gall to ask me if his nationality was the reason I wouldn't sleep with him, the many who couldn't get it up when I was agreeable, and the many who could and did when I was not, the pleasant young foreigner who turned out to be the private property of his gigantic girlfriend, the ones who were so grotesque in their appearance that I couldn't possibly get past their faces to even consider a relationship with them, especially sexual, the sharks and the geeks and the sadists, the latter category which I had specifically stated I didn't want, and the ones who wanted endlessly dirty talk, the ones who wanted to be punished, the ones who could only boast about the size of the bankrolls and other equipment, and this definitely includes the teacher who said, all the kids want my stuff, the businessman who had an adjective for every letter of his last name, R is for rich, the pathetic little husband who was nothing more than a vegetable, and his vegetarian wife, the ones, and there were many, who said, my name is so-and-so, how far do you go? The 300-pound lady judge who screamed abuse at me, the transvestite who wanted me to support him, the numerous young studs who had nothing to offer besides the negative results of their goddamn blood tests, the diminutive actor and the other short ones, the astronomer who cried like a baby and said he had been betrayed by every star he ever knew, the fanatic priest who wanted me to confess to things I had never even dreamed of, the worn-out soldiers, the burned-out poets, the pumped-up jocks and the used-up kids, the racists, including the one at whose place I left my white sweater, and I'd rather cut off my right thumb than go back for it, the drunks, junkies, crack, and cokeheads, the multitude of liars, and especially the nice ones who never called back. To all of you I say, just forget my phone number. I don't need all the hassles. I'll be starting school next month, and I just don't want to be bothered. Don't hold your breath, any of you. Sincerely, the underweight platinum blonde. Have a nice day. I think it's a single.